Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ann Cosgrove, the editor-in-chief of Facility Executive Magazine, and this webinar is presented by Condeco, and the title, as you can see on your screen, is How Technology Can Increase Workplace Productivity. Before we get started, I would like to cover a few housekeeping items with you. Please note the control panel that is on your screen. This is where you can submit questions via the question box in that panel. Please send your questions in for the speaker at any time, and she will address them after the presentation. Also, please note the orange arrow on the left side of that control panel. Clicking on that will either expand or collapse the panel, so please be sure it is expanded so that you can access the question box. Also, if at any time you experience a technical difficulty, you can send a message to us privately in that question section. Someone will address you right away. Also, if you're interested in continuing education credits, please note you'll receive a certificate of attendance in an email from Facility Executive after this webinar, and you can report this to your association for the continuing education credit. Now I'd like to introduce your speaker, Donna Forshaw. Donna is Vice President of Sales at Condeco, and she's an experienced enterprise relationship executive, and she thrives in fast-paced environments. She is focused on developing deep, lasting customer relationships, and she's looking forward to speaking with you today about workplace productivity and technology. So with that, I'll hand it over to Donna. Hi, Donna. Thanks for joining us.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you hosting this and having me speak. So driving workplace productivity with technology. So we're going to talk about that today, and I am attempting to bring up the next slide. Hold on.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Hopefully you're seeing my agenda now. But before we jump into that, I just wanted to give you a little background about me and why it should matter what I say, right? So who am I? So I have been working in what people consider end user intensive software applications in one way or another for almost my entire career. If you count the bartending I did all through college, then it would be my entire career, because if anything's end user intensive and customers wanting to get your attention as much as possible and you making them happy, certainly bartending is high amongst that. But I started out doing training. So end user training, Microsoft, Excel, PowerPoint, all those things that people didn't always understand in the workplace as technology was evolving. Moved on from there as that became less important, and moved on to audio conferencing, right? So conference calls, so important to individuals at the time when that's all they had. Moved on to, or included web, so WebEx, like what we're doing today. That's when it first was in the market. I was helping with that, and then video conferencing. On from there to travel management software, including postage, so how to use visual builds to get people to make the right decisions internally. And then now, when I came to Condeco about 7 years ago, obviously workspace scheduling. At the time when I was recruited, I asked the question, hold on, what about Outlook? And just like every other question I had asked when I joined a corporation, it was, no, there's a better way to do it. We just have to use technology and help users along that journey. So back to the agenda. What's meant by productivity in the workplace? Then talking about bringing technology in that's going to aid the productivity into your office. Key trends that we're seeing as well as other people. And then finishing that off with questioning and answers. All right. So what does productivity in the workplace mean? So obviously, 37% of businesses globally see improving employee productivity as the greatest potential of the workplace. And so what's interesting to me about this is there's two words in here that are so important. And I doubt that if you had a conversation with 5 other people, you would be able to agree on what they really mean, right? So if we look at productivity, obviously it's old school reference is the ratio between output and inputs, and it's tied to efficiencies. But today, to try to marry an ROI to that becomes really very tricky, because there's so many other things that go into that, right? So it's employee experience, it's making their jobs easier. How do we do that? Obviously, we're going to talk about technology and what we think is going to help drive that productivity. But again, productivity and what it means is different to every different organization I talk to, they see it in a slightly different way. And then the workplace. You know, again, historically, workplace has been, I go into the office every day, I sit at my desk, I have a nice plant, I have a picture of my dogs, and that's where I sit and I do the majority of my work, whether I'm sitting there, often off in meeting rooms, etc. That's my workplace. But today, because of technology, nothing could be, you know, further from the truth. That might be one place I work, but not surprisingly, I travel probably 70% of the time. So my workplace today is actually my home office. So I am sitting with a boot on my foot, had surgery last week, so I couldn't travel into an office today, but that doesn't mean I can't work. I also work in trains, planes, coffee shops, parking lots, co-working spaces, and home office. So those are just a few of the different workplaces that now we're trying to figure out the best way and the most efficient way to get technology in, and then also parity of that technology regardless of the workspace. So technology is bringing us great strides, but we're still running into some challenges when we're looking at parity between the different workspaces today. All right, so this just reinforces, so globally, Condeco, if you don't know who we are, we help corporations liberate your workspace. We are a technology organization, been around for about 15 years, and we're global. So most of the stats you're going to see today come from a lot of disparate sources. Most of them will be noted within the slide deck. But it's also, we do a workplace study every year. It's called the Modern Workplace, and we're about to release the 2020 study, which is findings from our clients as well as some other sources. So that's where the majority of these stats are coming from. I always like to know that. I'm a data freak. Always good to know why people are telling me what they are. So this slide, so globally, you're seeing the business leaders are seeing productivity as the greatest benefit. And you can see it's pretty standard across the board. Germany is always, they probably think they're very productive anyway, so they don't really need to. But in our mind, when we're thinking about productivity, it's empowering employees, right? Through the disparate demographics and bringing them through change management to really create an agile workforce. In order to do that, we are very user-centric. Listening and understanding what the needs are becomes very, very important. And what we're finding too is, although globally business leaders want this, they're having difficulty defining the ROI around it. So when you're thinking about what's the ROI about making your business more productive, old school, or if you're in manufacturing, I can make us more productive by being able to create more widgets. In most businesses, services organizations, et cetera, it's a little trickier because now my ROI is tied to an employee experience. So if I can help attract and retain better employees or more employees, and I make them more efficient, that absolutely ties to an ROI, but it's difficult to prove. A smaller footprint, because technology has now allowed us to work anywhere, like I do, that's easier to prove an ROI, but I still need to manage that employee experience. And then obviously a digital experience, right? So the technology that's going to remove any friction for those employees to get to their workspaces and any resources that are necessary for them. So looking at this slide, this is just, again, what we've seen in the 1,000, we have probably about 2,500 clients, many in the Fortune 500, 100, definitely in the 1,000. But we talked to 400 global corporations, and this is where this slide comes from. And so 2/3 have plans to implement shared desk workspaces. I would say in the 7 years I've been at Condeco, we've always done conference room scheduling, always been very, very important and really the bread and butter of what we do. But we've also done desk scheduling. So we're a UK-based company, and in the desk scheduling, shared desk workspaces, the rest of the world is ahead of the Americas. They've been doing this for a long time. I used to work for British Telecom probably 15 years ago, and we were sharing desks then. So it's been around. It's not a new concept, but being able to marry the technology to get that user experience, the experience, and drive efficiency is actually making it a much more recognized plan for people. All right. So flexible working, definitely a positive impact on productivity. If I can work where I am, and instead of having to go back to an office after a meeting, obviously that makes everything much easier for me. For people who are sharing jobs and duties, it makes a lot of sense. I live about 2.5 hours out in New York City. My office is in New York City. It's difficult for me to go in every day. I do when I need to, but the flexible working actually makes it so that I can maintain my job and a sense of normalcy. 85% of businesses transforming their physical workspace is important. And again, this goes back to that employer experience, the employee experience. We're at a time, which I'm sure most of you recognize, unemployment is very low. The talent pool we're looking for is limited. I have been looking for a pre-sales person for 6 weeks and struggling to find somebody. And I think everybody's in that same boat. So if businesses can be seen as technology forward, as we're looking to try and attract employees that are fresh out of college, that are using mobile 90% of the time, or even a little bit further along in their career, they're looking for a technology advanced corporation. All things being equal, they're going to lean towards that because that's just what they prefer. And then the search for a meeting space. It's crazy. I go into companies, really large companies that we all push from, do something with on a very regular basis. And the fact that their employees are still spending so much time, I just need a space to have a meeting, to do my job. It's mind-boggling, but it's true. So the technology is what helps drive that. It makes it easier for people to do their jobs, making them more productive, going back to our original statement. One of the other interesting things I came across in the recent days was, now as everything's coming together and we're building this technology in and we're making that more important. Sorry, I'm having difficulty moving my slides forward. There we go. I found that there's now a chief heart officer in some companies, right? So it's enough that we're seeing that bringing technology into your office is important, but the chief heart officer is something that's real because that employee experience is so integral to businesses these days. Everybody's seeing people stay for a year or two. Long gone are the days that people are at companies for 20 or 30 years, or they work at the same place for their entire careers. So part of the reason around this is the importance of the look and the feel of the workplace, which is why 85% of organizations are looking at that right now. All right. One of the other interesting things is bringing parity to the workplace with your home office. So if I was to say, I don't know if she can spell, Alexa, nope, she can't spell. She's in my office here in my home. So if I need to know what time it is in Singapore, which I often do in a global organization, I can ask her and she can tell me. If I'm working on budgets and I need to know what 30 times 85 is, I can ask her, she can tell me. I'll be sitting in my work office and I do it all the time and she's not there to tell me. So it's bringing parity into the office with what people have at home is another interesting struggle corporations are dealing with, because the prevalence of IoT devices, which we'll talk a little bit about later, is here. We're all using them personally, but how do we get them into the offices so we have that parity? Okay. Just a couple more stats for you. One of the other things we're seeing is the congregation of IT, facilities, real estate, and HR all coming together now. And the reason for that is because it's no longer, oh, IT, it's Outlook, that's how they're scheduling rooms, or we're going to put some devices out there, so that's IT. Facilities needs to know what's going on where. So even who we talk to in a sales cycle has changed completely. It used to be, I don't want to say we avoided IT, but they certainly weren't our first people that we talked to. We would go to facilities because facilities people understand the need for this. They understand the need for data to drive their decisions about how their space is being utilized. They understand if they need to do a restack, what that means. They understand a 2-to-1 ratio from a 1-to-1 ratio, and how almost impossible that is to do immediately, and how the importance of the data. Real estate, obviously, also important because they're looking at the overall portfolio. And then HR. HR is coming into this now as well because of that importance of the employee experience and that chief heart officer, which it's an interesting concept that is just showing how important that experience is. One of the other things that we're seeing, and I can't say that this is recent, but it's been, I think since the beginning of time, since I've been here, is the mobile experience. You're not going to be able to do anything from a technology standpoint unless you have mobile married along with that. So mobile is becoming increasingly important as well. So if you are adding technologies that don't have a mobile application or a mobile enabled website with it, you're likely not going to be able to engage 100% of your staff. So workplace technology and the innovation to drive productivity. So this slide kind of makes me chuckle. Workplace productivity has increased 84% over the last 40 years because of digital technology. I would say it has to have increased even greater than that, which seems impossible, but true. 40 years ago, I was in high school, I want to say. Yeah, I was in high school. And you went to school, you went home, you carried a giant book bag. Your parents went to work, they came home, no laptops, nothing. They were there and they had a finite amount of time that they were working, and that was it. Technology has changed all that. There's no way I could work every place I do without technology. There's no way that you could measure and understand how your space is being utilized without technology. So some numbers for you. I hate reading slides. I'm hoping everybody on the presentation can read, but what we're looking at is how many users, this is us specifically, we have 6.5 million users daily using our technology, with 3.4 million meeting rooms booked and 93,000 desks managed on a daily basis. That's crazy. The reason we were able to do this and to scale is because a few years ago, we made the decision to move to a much more agile solution with the Microsoft Azure cloud. So we're completely now a SaaS solution where we've removed the need for on-premise technology. The productivity has increased because, again, this is your users being able to find a room. And because of that, there's studies out there, and I'm sure you've all seen them, that approximately anywhere between 40 and 60% of your space goes unused. It is booked, but it's not used. And that's true whether it be any type of workspace. Meeting rooms is probably, or has historically been, the biggest offender, but now as people are booking workspaces, whether it's desks, huddle rooms, etc., that's becoming true as well. And data is the thing that helps you understand those numbers and change behavior. And then the impact. Obviously, you can see the great savings that can be recognized because the productivity increases and the technology being used in your workspace, right? So at Condeco, we do a lot of things to understand what's on the horizon, what's coming next. Obviously not the ability to push a button on my laptop, but we do things like hackathons, right? So we're doing hackathons, we bring people in and we ask them to help drive our roadmap. We talk to our clients. We, again, have some of the largest clients in the world, largest organizations in the world, but we also have some very small ones with very unique niche needs. And everybody's important because a user of technology is the user of technology. And as much as the users are very important to us, the back end responsibility or back end reporting and the ability to give data, and also for a client to be able to manage how that space is being used is equally important. So very user centric, but also making it so business rules can be followed, managed, and then data given out of that. And so bringing it all together, the way we've done this, and because of the Azure cloud, is you can see everything on the outside ring is what can be brought together from a simple reservation, right? So we do this through APIs. This isn't specific to Condeco, but it's something that definitely people are looking at. So from a user, they can do it. They can make a reservation. They can use technology in all the ways they're used to, either at home or in a workplace. And some of it can be proactive and some of it can be reactive. The other thing we've done is we've started partnering with people, right? So instead of, again, Condeco being a workspace scheduling organization, we recognize how important data is. So obviously we have reporting, but we've also built APIs so that can reach out to other people. So whether it's Microsoft BI, it's Tableau, and then you can use us as a single data source or bring in other data sources. We have a great partnership with ProxyClick, visitor management. So thinking about all those things that people are doing that is part of a bigger event, visitor management being one of them. You can either use a smaller tool like we have, or again, use APIs, additional technology. And we're seeing this happen a lot. So Sensor Corp companies, Relogix is a fantastic organization, as is VergeSense. So anything that's gonna help drive your data, we're trying to help. Instead of us thinking we can do it all, we know what we're very good at. We're gonna be the best we can be, and we put about 30% of our profits each year back into R&D to increase our innovation. But we're now working with other organizations who are the very best at what they do as well. So the Microsoft Azure cloud and cloud SaaS in general has helped drive all this innovation and technology, which is going to continue to see where we go in the future. So we have a case study, and it's actually on our website. And if you do ask for the slides afterwards, there will be a link to it. But Vodafone, most people recognize it. It's a fairly large organization. It's UK headquartered, and they asked us to free up their unused workspace, right? So they just needed more space for mobile employees. I think most people are challenged with that same thing. I may have, even my office, I think we have 40 people who can be in and out of there at any given time. We have 24 desks. So I book a desk whenever I'm going in there. I always like the same desk, but I still have to book a desk. These are what companies are coming to us and asking us for help with. We also have just only 3 conference rooms. So how do we do that? So we help them with their first by doing sensor studies, and then helping them decide on the employee to desk ratio, giving them reporting data on how their space was actually being used as far as booked versus people showing up, and then helped with an improved booking process for both rooms and desks. So one of the important things that happens when you're doing something and you're putting in a new program is the change management that goes along with it. Unless there's something in it for the end user, they're going to be like, oh yeah, they just want me to do this now. Or, oh, they want me to book a desk now when I used to have one. So one of the most important components is actually the change management piece that goes along with that, and the communications that talks about, hey, what's in it for me? All right, yeah, we're going to do this, but you need to tell me what's in it for me. Here's the, this is just the video that's not going to show. I'm going to skip through this. So I would say, as you're embarking on this, it's really important to look at this from an end user perspective. And for those of you with organizations where you have a heavy population of executive assistants, to absolutely include them in the process. Don't include too many, because otherwise you're going to end up getting stuck in the mud, but they are really such an important part of what goes on, and they will be your evangelists. So when you're thinking about technology and how it can work, it's really and truly our most successful deployments are those where we absolutely bring the most amount of people in from different organizations or from different parts of the organization first, and have them help them with the journey. They become your evangelists, your experts, and if you can get your executive assistants on your side, then you're going to be in a great place. All right. So now let's talk about the key trends and influences of the workplace. I'd mentioned the importance of mobility before. 2.87 billion smartphone users globally. I laugh because somebody was telling me this morning she was having a fight with her 13-year-old daughter about bringing her mobile phone to work or to school. So it's everybody has a smartphone. If there's a technology that doesn't have a mobile app associated with it, it's likely not going to be well received. But if I think about some of the other key trends and influences, I love the beginning of the year. Everybody's coming out with a study that says, here's what we're seeing as our key trends for 2020. And so some of the ones that caught my eye were actually on a blog yesterday from ProxyClick, and I'm just going to quickly read through them. Most of them absolutely tie back to what we're talking about today. Wellness and sustainable work life, mental health at work, employee experience, digital experience, balancing security and privacy needs, rise of virtual assistants, more remote working opportunities, the co-working boom, sustainability, and then this next one I hadn't heard of before, but purple people, which apparently is marrying business and technical skills together, so more multi-dimensional employees. So with that in mind, let's talk about the evolution of the workplace and how we got where we are today and how that lines up with what I just read through. So evolution of the workplace used to be split between work and life, and now it's just work life, right? So we work from anywhere, anytime. Most of us have laptops, we bring them home. If we don't, we're on our phones. I know my company has a bring your own device policy. Most companies do. And so unless you're really firewalling yourself, it's really easy to get, oh, let me just answer this email. 41% of employees are already offering remote working. I actually think that number is probably a little bit higher. Again, these numbers are from beginning of 2019. Officeification, not sure if I said that right. I have trouble with that word, versus homification, right? So it used to be I would bring, again, that picture of my dogs and my plant in and put it on my desk, and instead I have my dogs under my desk. A smarter workplace and workers demanding more. So back to where's the parity between what I have, especially as it refers to IoT devices in my home office versus what I can have because of security and other concerns in my work office. And then even customer expectations have changed. So we've seen that with our customers. And so they seem to want more. They want 24/7 service. They don't understand if they can't have that. And so that's why all the demands for us seem to be much greater than they used to be. You know, one of the things we try to do with the marrying together the officeification and homification is something as simple as a sense of ownership, even if it's for the day, with a workspace. So if I book that desk, I can actually get a nameplate that has my desk, my name on it, and that's through just a desk screen, right? So it will automatically say who booked that desk. It'll show you who's sitting there if you happen to go by it and that person's not there. If I'm looking for Kevin and Kevin's not sitting there because he's off at a meeting, I at least know he's supposed to be sitting there. I can leave him a note. More likely I'll text them, but at least it gives me that little personal touch. It also, that what's in it for me, that's one piece. The other piece is now I can find anybody I'm working with as I'm not at the same desk every day. 23% of employees say mobile apps increase productivity. Again, I think that this is likely an older stat. I would say that that number is actually much greater. There's no way, again, technology and mobility are tied together and to break them apart at this point. And so 80% of clients stating enabling mobility. It is funny, it's back again to the Americas versus other countries. We were a little bit behind with this. So even today, it's easy enough using our software. I can book a desk on the subway on my way into the office. Super simple, if my company allows me to. It's just them, especially with the bring your own device, it's back to security and parity and what works where. So it's easy enough to say the technology exists, and as an employee, the technology exists. Why can't I do this? I can download it from an app store. How come I can't use it? So it's marrying together that security and what's the best way to go through and do that. One of the other concepts that we're looking at, and it's been around for a while. When marketing first put this to the slide deck for me, I kind of thought they were pumping, but I made it work. And so the linear economy, the one thing they did do was keep this as a single slide, which doesn't make sense. The linear economy, that should be a straight line, right? So this is how it used to be. We had something, we took a natural resource, we took it, we made something out of it, and then we threw it out. Sustainability is absolutely the exact opposite. So come in the circular economy, right? So the circular economy is reusing, recycling, make it, take it, use it again. I feel guilty when I am drinking out of a water bottle that's in public. Just if it's a plastic single use, now it's called a single use water bottle, because it's true. I have 15 water bottles all over. Instead of having a sustainable water bottle, I just end up grabbing something. But this is true in the workplace as well. So 2/3 of the firms in the United States anyway are focusing on waste reduction and resource efficiency, but they run into the stumbling block of how do I recover the materials for recycling? And then even if I can't recover them, how do I, get rid of them? And so in our mind, if you're thinking about SaaS and a completely cloud technology, it's a lot better than those server rooms, those IT locked rooms that are on just about every floor, certainly in every building. If you could reduce in those rooms, that would help with this. That will help with sustainability. The first time I went through the slide deck, it was a live audience, so it was a little bit easier. It was more interactive. But one of the important things with that live audience was having conversations about what does sustainability mean and how far can you go for recycling. And we brought up the movie The Desk Set. So I am absolutely aging myself, although I was not alive when it was first released. It was released in 1957. It's an old Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn movie. And it was when Spencer Tracy was a consultant brought in to automate a group of secretaries' jobs, or actually they were research analysts. And so they put in this computer, which was the entire size of an office. It was a huge, and you haven't seen it. It's interesting. I tried to grab a screenshot to throw in this, but getting rid of that, if you go down from where we were in 1957, and that was the future, to where we are now, 53 years later, wow, 63 years later, the strides we've made are incredible. Back to technology, an 84% increase in productivity. But with all of that said, there's still a lot of resources that we're not able to recycle. And so if the cloud is going to make it a little bit more sustainable for us because there's less recycling, then that's something that certainly should be part of facility managers, real estate people, anything that you're looking for as you're looking to be more green and report back of how you're increasing your sustainability. This is certainly something to think about. On to IoT and driving better productivity. So I am, so IoT. So when we think of that, when we think of most things, if you think back to your house and that ALEXA person, and I have cameras all over my house. So shocked that FedEx hasn't come. Usually if I'm doing a webinar, I go into the office because my 3 dogs likes to tell me when FedEx is here, but I can look at a camera that tells me who it is that's outside my house. So in my home office, I have a lot better technology. I can tell when somebody joins my network. I can tell, I can ask a question that's instantly answered without going through the hardship of typing 3 words into Google. So all of that's available to me. But then how do I get that same parity in my office? And that has to do with really the provisioning of IoT within an office space and balancing that security and privacy, individuals' privacy. There are companies that want to be able to track where a person is at any given time in the building. It's great information for a company because I know that, hey, Donna's in sales and she's always over there with legal. Maybe if I'm doing a restack, I should put sales and legal closer together. Probably not, but maybe. So that's information that's very valuable to you. But Donna, as a person, is like, hold on, is that because they don't think I'm working? Is that, it's always something nefarious in individuals' minds. So privacy is a huge concern. But there's the ability out there with all of these IoT products of how it can drive our productivity. It's just, again, balancing the security, the message to the end users about how you're driving efficiencies and how those behaviors help you design your workspace of the future. My computer does not like me today. There we go. So the connected office. So we like to talk a lot about liberating workspaces because that's what we do. We are consistently helping our clients recognize how they can increase their productivity using different technologies. So whether it be space scheduling, meeting room, or desk booking, whether it's having digital technology on the back end of that so that they understand, hey, who's where, wayfinding to say, again, just another piece of digital technology, who's where, marrying in UC, whether it's video conferencing, Teams, etc. So that's also prevalent now and part of most meetings. Whether it's a vendor workflow, hey, I need something brought to where I am. Having the visitors who are coming to this meeting be welcomed and brought in. All of these things done from a single workflow helps increase productivity, helps increase employee satisfaction, and makes it just a better experience for everyone. Something moves, something changes, all of that changes with it. And of course, again, having that mobile application is absolutely imperative to that. And so interestingly enough, Condeco does mean to meet. And that is why this is so important to us, right? This is all we do. This is what we stand for. This is what's very, very important. swear I used to know how to use a mouse button. And then some additional things in here that we do with partners, the space analytics, IoT devices, whether they be sensors or something else, voice, people, data and ID, RFID badges, analytics, etc. And then finally, just to join that connected vision, a community of people wanting to swap old ways of working for newer and exciting ways. And I'm just going to take this whole build all the way there. So here's the information that you can get just from a single workspace that's been liberated, right? How is the space being utilized? Where is it being utilized? How is everybody getting there? And then all of this is great, but really not that some insights into it. So I'm all about data. I've always been all about data. I love numbers. And to understand how to design the workspace of the futures, it's very important to understand what's going on in your space today, what technology you have, how is that technology being used? Are people using certain spaces because the technology in them is better? How do you track that? You can use sensors, absolutely, to see, is space being used, yes or no, but what are the additional analytics that are important to you to understand, to know, yes, a space is being used, but what's in it? What ties all of that together for you? So the ability to create that reporting is one of our foundations, and to give you interactive analytics so that you can make some really valuable data-driven designs moving forward. So your usage rates, your occupancy rates, resource usage, whether that be something brought into the room or something that's in the room, how many people are showing up, are there different meeting room types? Is it huddle rooms are becoming more and more prevalent everywhere? We're finding that less and less people are booking them. I kind of think that's a mistake, because then you get somebody like me who's loud in meetings all day, who goes into the office and just sits in a huddle room all day, and I'm using it as a private office. Making that a bookable resource, same day only from the resource itself, will help challenge people like me. And then here's some, what data do we track? What data don't we track? So employees or all consumers of digital technology, IoT, AR, VR, the mobile devices that are out there that allow us to work where and when we want to. So all of these are important components of you designing your office space of the future. This is an important quote that we put up in most of our slides when we're doing anything like this. And I'm just checking my time to make sure I'm not going over. But big data is becoming a differentiator for real estate professionals. It's true. People, another thing that's semi-cyclical in my mind, and again, the 7 years I've been in this space, is sensors used to be very, very important, kind of died off a little bit, and now it's becoming very, very important again, because people are really they need to understand their space. So it's all about the data. And if you're not getting data from however you're managing your space today, you're likely not going to be able to understand and decide what technology is important for designing your space of tomorrow. And then just because, again, my marketing team likes to play with me a little bit, this is when we don't only think about today, right? We're a forward-thinking organization, and my product people are always doing user studies, talking to users about what's important to them, looking at trends, all sorts of crazy things like that. And so, interestingly enough, my marketing people found this slide, and you're probably looking at it like, what? Where is she going with this one? But the world is looking a lot more vertical, right? If you look at the way people are reading newspapers, or the way we look at our phone, it makes me crazy. I'm not a huge social media fan, but it makes me crazy that if I'm on Instagram and I put my phone to the side, Instagram doesn't go to the side. Makes me crazy, completely vertical. So Samsung apparently has decided that they're going to create some vertical televisions to help with that. And so it's just one of those silly things that just when you think technology isn't going to surprise you, it may. So do I think this is important to any part of our conversation today? Not Not really, other than we don't know what the younger demographic is going to drive, what technology needs they're going to drive. So just be open-minded. Be open-minded, listen to them, let them talk to you, ask them what's important to them. Not everything can be done, but when it's technology related, it will absolutely help to attract, retain, and make that employee experience much richer, which will help all of you drive productivity in your organizations. So that's all I have in my presentation.
Hi, Don.
And a question out there we want to talk to? Perfect.
Wonderful.
Hi, Ann.
Thanks, Donna. Thanks, Donna. This is Ann coming back in. Thanks for the great presentation. And thank you to the attendees for sending in questions. We do have some time for Q&A, so I will start with a quick question. You had mentioned Chief Heart Officer, I believe, earlier in the presentation. And yes, and we just got a question from an attendee asking if you could define or clarify what that position is for those organizations that have those.
So if you were to Google Chief Heart Officer, so Gary V, who it's Gary Vaynerchuk or something, I don't know, he's all over social media and he's helping younger people. He's actually he's a very advanced marketing person. He started out a long time ago in his parents' liquor store, created a YouTube page and brought the liquor store from a tiny little thing in New Jersey to a giant shipping. It made them wildly successful. He's now created a marketing company that's probably been around 20 years, but he does a lot of digital social media. And the first time I saw a Chief Heart Officer mentioned was at his organization. And I've seen it 2 or 3 times in the past couple of months. And it's enriching the employee experience and bringing to the forefront how important that is to the culture of an organization. That the employee and the culture of the organization is just as important as any other piece of the organization. But if you Google it, you'll find out more information on it.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that. So jumping into some of the media content, here's a question about the type of platform you've been talking about that Condeco offers. And so what does implementation of the Condeco platform for meeting rooms or desk booking look like? For instance, general timeline, does that vary widely by organization? And what does the client need to know or have available to implement it?
Oh, okay. So it varies by organization. Obviously, okay. A organization with a smaller footprint is not going to be as involved as a global implementation. But it's basically understanding your workspace, what it is today, how it's being used today, what the employee journey is today, and what you want to improve. So I run a team of salespeople, as well as work with marketing and product experts that will do a discovery call to understand what it is you're trying to achieve, and then we'll help you along that path. If it's simply, my rooms are booked centrally, or they're just booked in Outlook, I don't have any data, which is what we hear a lot, or we're moving to a desk sharing situation, then we can help with that as well. It's just understanding that journey so we can help. The software piece is easy. The implementation, again, depending on size, can be anywhere from 4 to 8 to 12 weeks. It's the change management that we're going to talk to you about as well, and making sure your end users want to come on that journey. Actually, if they don't have a choice, but how you can get them on your side and understanding, again, what's in it for them is going to be the most important piece of it. But if you'd like to get in touch, I can certainly help you with that.
Thank you. Thanks. So shifting gears just a bit, you had talked about mobile worker, remote workers, mobility in the workforce that so many of us experience now.
Yeah.
So, and you had mentioned actually having parity between the remote locations and the organization's offices. So you talked about, and you did touch on that a bit, having parity in some of the specifics of that. But what pitfalls, or I don't know if pitfalls is the right word, but what pitfalls or just considerations should facilities managers be aware of or consider before implementing technology? Or I mean, I guess there are some commonly overlooked parity topics you've seen, causing some stumbling blocks. Yep. Or any? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the most famous one I came across, I don't know if famous is the right word, but the most jarring one I came across was I had a very large company that we do business with. It's a major pharmaceutical organization that said, hey, I want to be able to say, and I apologize because there is one in my office, ALEXAA, find me a conference room. We can do that. We actually, 8 months before I was first asked for it, saw it at a sales kickoff. We thought it was cool and it's fun and all that. But then we talked about the challenges around that. And this company was insistent. And we're like, all right, well, listen, we just want you to understand, nobody really knows on the back end what's done with that data, right? Because every time I say something, I can go and I can look and see every question I've asked, every question my husband's asked, for as long as we've had these devices all over our house. I don't care. I have nothing to hide. But my organization might, and not even something to hide, but information they don't want publicly available. And so they were insistent that they could get stripped down versions and they'd be okay. And so we were going down the path of having it tested in their user experience lab. And then something happened, and it was public about 18 months ago, where a higher up executive at an organization was talking to the device, or having a conversation where a device was located in her home, mentioned a client, and somehow that client was notified. And they were like, hold on, we're stopping everything. Because we don't know a lot of times from a security standpoint what's going on, your security organizations are going to say no to everything. And so it's really, there's importance in parity, but there's importance also in conversations. I understand why my IT guy will not let me plug this in my office. I understand that. I don't like it, but I understand it. So it's that's an example of where the parity is lacking today, and for good reason. But one of the challenges that will likely be overcome in the near future, because just as we use Android in the background of our digital signage, it's a very stripped down, makes it so people can't get to the internet. So there's ways to strip it down. But I think that from a mass production standpoint, not all B2C companies were looking to do that initially. I think initially Amazon was, I want one of these devices everywhere in somebody's house, and I have probably 6 of them in my house. So that was great, but now transferring that to an organization and making it secure enough for that to work is the next step.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that. Yes, thank you for that. So we have time for about one last question. You had talking about on the back end, I'll call it, as far as the facility management side and the real estate departments, et cetera. You had mentioned and talked about in detail the reporting capabilities and the benefits, obviously, to that backside of things. Can you just review that quickly in terms of what type of reporting is available and what type of kind of capability that affords to the facilities manager? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So within our product, anything that you put into it, so anything, whether it be the user information, a name, email, telephone number, a title of the meeting, the time the meeting took place, did I ask for catering to be brought in? Did I ask for a whiteboard to be brought in? Did I show up for the meeting? How long was the meeting? What size was the meeting room? How many people were invited to the meeting room? All of those things are included in the reporting. What we had started to do at a certain point was we were going to build out a giant reporting dashboard. But we know that we are a workspace scheduling tool. It's the marrying together of the end user experience with the back-end business rules. And so instead what we did was we made it that via an API, this data, any historical booking data, be it for a meeting room, huddle space, or a desk, can be you can get the basic data, as I've said, or you can actually export it through an API. So it's not really an export, it's a synchronization to a Power BI or a Tableau and create dashboards so that at a simple mouse click, any given day, I can see what was my utilization in a specific meeting room, in a specific office, in a specific country, etc. Again, all that data is available within our software, but you'd have to just export it and manipulate it via a pivot table versus having a direct connection to an API through a Power BI. What's nice about that is if there's other data you want to match up with that, right? So especially as you're looking to do desk sharing, booking a desk is great. It's important. We believe that having a desk screen on it is important as well, both for the sense of ownership as well as removing the friction so that I can find somebody that I'm trying to work with, and I can do that via a mobile app or via a kiosk. A mobile app makes more sense in today's world. But also because now I know if somebody is touched in and touched out. Two other important components of that, though, is some people want to have a sensor. Okay, Donna booked a desk, she's checked into it, that's great. How often is she actually sitting at it? So that's one piece that a sensor might be able to bring you that information. And the other piece is a security badge data. Like how, did Donna badge in that day? Did she badge out? Was she gone for lunch? So those three disparate sources can now be brought into a Power BI or a Tableau, and you can have a much more robust dashboard than just the single source of data that we can provide. You can also look at where the internet is pinging and things of that nature as well. But it becomes just one piece of a much larger picture instead of just being the only data available.
Okay, all right, thank you for expanding on that, I appreciate it. Okay, well, thank you, Donna. It looks like we're out of time, so thank you very much for your presentation today, I enjoyed it.
Thank you very much for listening and attending.
Thank you, and of course, thanks to our audience and for attending and listening in today and sending in your questions. We'd also like to thank Condeco for sponsoring this webinar. A recording of this presentation will be available online at facilityexecutive.com, as well as the Condeco website, and that's on your screen there, condecosoftware.com. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.